you for the opportunity to be able to speak here this morning. And what I'm going to cover is really to talk about the evolution of drug discovery. I want to do that through exemplifying this with GSK's R&D strategy. The themes I'm going to bring out are very consistent, I think, across the pharma industry as a whole, because there are a number of challenges which we all face in the current environment. In particular, I want to bring out the industry-academic collaborative interactions, because I think this is key and where there's huge potential for having a major impact in the identification of medicines in the future. So for those of you less familiar with GSK, as a very brief background, I want to say who we are. So we're a science-led global healthcare company. Our mission is to improve the quality of human life by enabling people to do more, feel better, and live longer. We have three main areas of business. The first is around pharmaceuticals, where we create innovative medicines to treat a whole range of diseases. We focus in certain therapeutic areas, for example, respiratory, but actually we are keen to identify medicines across a whole range of different diseases. Okay, thank you. Second area is vaccines. This is an increasingly important area for us, with increasing area of business. Here we make vaccines to protect both children and adults for a whole range of infectious diseases. This includes, for example, very recently, the Ebola virus, where clinical trials are just beginning and there's a lot of things in the paper associated with this. The third area is consumer healthcare. Here we make innovative consumer products really in four general categories: total wellness, skin health, oral care, and nutrition. But the area I'm going to focus on in terms of our R&D strategy is around pharmaceuticals, and this is the area that I come from. In terms of where GSK is based, we're a global company, as I highlighted. We're based in more than 115 countries. However, our research and development is on very particular sites around the world. We have sites in the United States, in the UK. Our vaccines business is based in Belgium. We have neurosciences based in China. We have a group focusing on the diseases of the developing world in Spain. And we also have a research site in France. Now, you will have seen slides like this in the past, I'm sure, which really tries to highlight some of the challenges associated with where we are within the pharma industry as a whole. This includes components around the timelines and the work that needs to take place within our clinical trials, that these have increased in terms of times across each of the decades. So now it takes up to 7 years to progress something in the clinic before getting to market. The second area is around the decrease in success rates. If you look at the success rates in the 1990s compared to beyond 2000, you can see that this has decreased. I think there are two areas to focus on associated with this. First of all, the phase 2B and phase 3 clinical trials, where we get reduction in success. Really, I think one of the key reasons for that is around the lack of efficacy. So that must raise questions for research in terms of what targets do we identify and what target validation do we do before moving the targets forward. And secondly, if you move into the earlier part of the drug discovery phase in terms of the development phase, phase 1 and phase 2A, where here we can often lose molecules due to safety or therapeutic index. And here there are questions for research in terms of what are the properties of the molecules we identify that we then move forward into clinical development, and how can we improve those in order to reduce the issues associated with safety. But the combination of these then leads to a significant increase in terms of the rising costs of R&D, which is not sustainable as a model. So what are GSK doing about this in terms of their R&D strategy? And this is a strategy that's been up and operating now for, I guess, 5 or 6 years. There are 4 main areas that we're focusing on. The first is around ensuring we do the best science. So this means what we need to do to, first of all, identify the right molecules with the best high-quality properties in order to move them through into development, to increase their chance of success and be able to evaluate them effectively in clinical trials. Secondly, it's around making sure we pick the right targets and we undertake appropriate levels of target validation to make sure we bring the molecules forward, which gives us the best chance of demonstrating efficacy when we go into clinical trials. Repersonalizing R&D, what I mean by that is, I guess historically, we and probably other companies have had international committees making decisions across all the projects we work on. But within GSK, what we've moved to is actually having focus around therapeutic areas, where each of these areas take responsibility for the strategy within them. And then within those therapeutic areas, we have discovery performance units, DPUs, which consists of somewhere between 5 and 50 scientists, and they take responsibility for 4, 5, or 6 projects, and therefore the decision making around each of the projects is then given clearly to the project leader to hopefully make the most effective decisions possible to move them forward. And I'll come back to this a bit later on in terms of how this impacts also our collaborations. Diversity through externalization. No matter how big a company is, there's always going to be more good ideas outside than there will be inside a company. And therefore, we, and I think a lot of other pharmaceutical companies, are now looking outside of our own company to make sure we find the best ideas for taking forward to help us to identify new medicines. Finally, improving return on investment. This is a clear request from our CEO. And here it's worth emphasizing it's not about trying to do things more cheaply, but actually trying to do things with higher quality. So therefore we actually increase our success rate, reduce our failure rate, and therefore we can be more effective and get a better return on investment. So what I'm going to focus on now is really one specific area as we move to looking about externalization. We recognize that, the external environment, there's many different groups and components that we will need to interact with. So we've established different types of models which hopefully make us effective partnering in different ways. So we have flexible partnerships with a range of, allow us to collaborate with a range of different companies, be they small biotech companies, medium-sized companies, or large companies. And in addition to that, if we have a long-term strategic alliance, then that may actually lead to acquisitions. And Cellzome is an example of a company that we acquired a few years ago. They have a really great proteomics technology, which fitted very nicely with our R&D approach. Open innovation. Open innovation is clearly very important. I think there's 2 components to this. One of which is in terms of supporting very basic research, which then underpins the drug discovery process itself. And secondly, in terms of what we do in terms of supporting those diseases where there isn't the financial gain in terms of identifying medicines to take forward. So an example of this is the Open Innovation Lab we've got based in Tres Cantos in Spain, where academics and companies can come and work there, collaborate together in order to tackle diseases like TB, malaria, leishmania, where many people around the world are affected by this, and there's no real good treatments out there currently. So I think it's a really important area that we need to do a lot to help to move that forward. Sharing risk. Again, this really refers to, in terms of different models we're doing, where it allows us to move into different areas and share the risk, which means that we could link in with venture capital companies, or including our SR1, our own venture capital arm, to collaborate in around different areas. And finally, the thing that's closest to my heart is bridging the gap with academia and industry, because I think it's a key area. I think it's probably fair to say that industry has not been always good at doing this. We have examples where we have given money to an academic group. We've allowed them to go off and do their research, and then been surprised a few years later when it hasn't necessarily delivered what we want it to deliver. We've also gone to the other extreme, where we see a great idea, we pluck it out of academia, we undertake work internally, and then been surprised when the project withers and dies because there isn't the champion there from the academic to move it forward. So we recognise there has to be a different model in terms of how we undertake things with industry and academia, And that is what I want to go on to talk to in terms of our approach about how we're doing that currently. If I can move on. That's it. Good. So this is an example of an initiative we started about 4 years ago now, Discovery Partnerships with Academia, or DPAC. It's built on a key principle that everyone plays to their strengths. So we recognise there's deep biology and disease understanding within academia, whereas we have drug discovery expertise within GSK. So rather than each side trying to reinvent each other's expertise, which is time-consuming and relatively inefficient, our approach is to build integrated partnerships, both sides coming together to take innovative ideas with the aim of identifying medicines that will benefit patients. Now, I think all pharmaceutical companies are undertaking a range of collaborations with academia, which is very encouraging to see. And I think it's probably fair to say that each company is doing things slightly differently. So I'm going to talk about some examples that really try to highlight some of the principles by which we try to operate by. So the first one is that we focus on the medicine. I think for any successful collaboration, you have to have a shared objective. Now, for us, we want to get to a medicine, so we're looking for academics who are also interested to get to a medicine. We're happy to start at any point. We can start very early in drug discovery, as long as there's a target where there's some evidence that relates it to a disease. And there's some biological response that we can then help to try to turn it into an assay. Once we start a collaboration, though, we will then progress, if successful, all the way through to a medicine, which could take many years, 10 to 15 years, before we get through to a medicine. But that's helpful because I think for drug discovery, in order to be efficient, you've got to know where you're going. So if you know what the medicine is, you can be clear about the clinical trials, you can be clear about your candidate properties, and therefore you know what you need to be doing in the early stages of research. We want to undertake the best science. This goes back to the R&D strategy. We have minimal infrastructure, and we will undertake projects independent of location. So we will go out and visit academics in a range of different institutions to find the right academic, the right research opportunity at the right phase of the research, which makes sense to be able to collaborate together. We're also interested in working in any disease area, either within the therapeutic areas we focus on or outside, as long as we have the expertise within GSK to move the program forward. Now, my group only works on projects in collaboration. We have no pure internal programs. So our success is absolutely dependent on the success of the collaborations we work on. So we will bring in whatever expertise is required within GSK to make sure the programs work effectively. And the expertise we bring in will complement what is within the academic group. And that allows us to be able to pick and choose the expertise to complement the academic, because they could have a range of different expertise that they bring in, and we will complement that to make a full drug discovery team to work together. Shared investment, shared reward. We're very keen that both sides contribute. In a partnership, you've got to have both sides together, and therefore we look for complementary match of skills. It's milestone funding with royalties. Now, royalties we think are important. Again, it goes back to the first point. You want to have a shared objective, and that is to get to a medicine. So part of the benefit should be the royalties that are associated with the medicine. Secondly, what's really important, we recognise academics spend many years working on a particular field, and if we stop the collaboration, then they should be allowed to continue their research if we choose we no longer work and collaborate together. In terms of what we look for, I won't go through this in detail, but really just to highlight, there's mainly 5 areas we're interested by. The first one is probably the most important. It's a clear therapeutic hypothesis. So if you have a supportable, coherent hypothesis, if you modulate a target, you get a biological response that will be, which we believe will be beneficial to patients. We see lots of great research when we're out, but this is probably the one criteria which actually is the most challenging for the ones taken forward. And that's the one we have the most discussions with the academic, trying to come together to see if we can establish a suitable hypothesis. We like to have the target defined, or at least a pathway. We look for enabling expertise, so coming together is more valuable than working separately. Tractability is important, both in terms of trying to find the molecule with the right properties to move forward in development, but also, once we've identified that molecule, that there's a very clear pathway for undertaking clinical evaluation with small subsets of populations which can then be expanded into broader groups. And finally, again, because it's a partnership, there has to be a reason why we need to come together to collaborate. So we need to have an opportunity for GSK to contribute. This is a typical Chevron diagram for drug discovery, and if we start working and we start talking to an academic that we're interested in collaborating with, then we very much start to identify, first of all, what is the medicine? Therefore, we then decide what are the clinical trials we need to undertake, and therefore we get over to the far left-hand side is what is the candidate properties we're looking for. Now, this early drug discovery component looks small there, but in reality, it takes 4 to 5 years to move that, to go through that segment to identify your candidate. So we've split this up to make it easier to identify progress in this area. So we have milestones for about a year, 18 months apart. And we agree with the academic what are the criteria for each of those milestones. We then agree what work needs to take place. And based on each of our expertise, who does what. And then we end up with a plan, which is like down below, where we agree what is it GSK does. And that's probably the main thing we contribute to the collaboration. But in addition, we also pay money to the academic for them to undertake their piece of work as well. If we're both successful, we meet the criteria, then we go on to the next milestone, and so on. But if not, then we stop, we give the key molecules back to the academic, and they can continue their research, or go and commercialize with someone else. That's it. So, I thought I'd show just some of the examples of projects we have which are active in Europe. I think there's a few things I want to bring out here. First of all, you will see that we work in a range of disease areas that's here. We work in both rare diseases as well as larger diseases. And for us, it's not the commercial value that's important, but actually what is the unmet medical need and whether the medicine we're looking to generate will have a significant impact and benefit those patients. I've got people's pictures up here because it comes back to the point of trying to repersonalize R&D. So we have the academic, and we have one individual from GSK who will be the lead scientist from GSK, and together they will work and be accountable for making that program move through the milestones. The other point worth highlighting is in terms of where the collaborations are. Fair to say that we started in the UK, so we have more collaborations in the UK. However, more recently, we're now moving further into Europe. We have collaborations now in France, we have one in Israel, and also very pleased to say that we earlier this year started a collaboration here in Italy, in the Lombardia region, with the University of Milan, so with Giovanni Bertoni. If you actually look a little bit more in terms of where the projects come from, I thought it may be helpful just really to then focus around Italy. And with the collaborations we've got in terms of projects, it's approximately 10% of the projects are from Italy. And so I went back and I had a look see of all the research proposals we've received over the last 4 years, where have they come from? And I've gone to look in terms of original proposals, and about 8.5%, 10% of those proposals also come from Italy. So it's encouraging to see there's a consistency in terms of the quality of projects and proposals we see in each of the countries, that actually approximately 10% of the proposals we identified from Italy, and that leads to approximately 10% of the projects. However, in terms of the proposals we have, we probably have seen over 500 proposals now, which means we're probably getting about 50 proposals from Italy over the last 4 years. But the question is that all there is? And is there more within the Lombardia region? My guess is there is. The question is for you and us is how do we make sure we bring these out? How do we get more collaborations taking place with the pharmaceutical sector? And therefore, what can be done in terms of having a greater impact within the Lombardia regions and the academics within them to help to identify medicines of the future? One of the things that we've been doing is we recognised that we go out to different universities and we meet academics, but we also see that we cannot get to all universities and we cannot meet all academics when we go out there. So we've now moved to a new additional strategy, which is called Discovery Fast Track, which allows anybody within Europe who are academics to apply to GSK in order to collaborate. It's an opportunity to be able to run a high throughput screen with us, where we will bring the compound collection we have, our 2 million compounds, we have our screening platforms, and we will then be able to identify, hopefully, molecules with biological activity, which can then be used to elucidate the biological mechanisms in more detail. And potentially, if we're successful, we could then go on to have a longer-term collaboration to identify a medicine. Oops. Aha. How do I come out? Do you know I can get back on? I've flipped out. Aha. So anyway, I can carry on speaking. So the way we operate this is that the academic brings a particular biological target. They may have some reagents. We, within GSK, we will then collaborate as a team to take the program forward. We will help to optimize the assay, miniaturize it, and then we will miniaturize it, and we will then run the screen, and then we will have the capabilities to then evaluate what comes out of the screen to help to identify the molecules. So molecules of biological activity, the academic can then use to help unravel the biology. And as I say, if we're successful, we can move that program forward and potentially have a longer-term collaboration to get into drug discovery and potential to deliver a medicine. So we have, thank you, I'll just go back one, thank you. So we've run this challenge this year, and we have over 200 proposals we've received. These proposals have come from 24 different countries across Europe, so we're very pleased in terms of where we've been able to get proposals from, far more countries than we've ever had the chance to visit. And although we're still coming to completion, we haven't made an announcement yet, I'm very pleased to say that one of the winners, of which we've identified up to 10, again, will have come from the Lombardia region. So we will make that announcement shortly. But that does mean then we will now have 2 potential collaborations moving forward in this area. So that's good news. So, in summary, I've tried to talk about, what is GSK's R&D strategy, and really focused this around industry-academic interaction with around discovery partnerships with academia, because I think it exemplifies a number of these components and the importance of externalization, the drive to get the best science, and really the focus around repersonalizing R&D. Now, from my perspective, I've had a great opportunity to visit universities here on a number of occasions. I've seen some very good research, and also very pleased that we've identified a couple of collaborations. But again, I think the question really is that is there more in academia around having more translational focus, and how do we help to ensure from everybody about trying to encourage these to come forward and increase the opportunity for industry-academic interaction? And therefore, is this the tip of the iceberg of the 2 collaborations, and what else can be achieved? So that's where I'm going to leave it. And okay, thank you.